See, I'm a beast when you hear that sound like yeah, beat on the beat when you hear that sound like woo. Yeah, bitch and the champ only need one round like ha. Yeah, me, I'm a G-Ring here and it sound like
Mike Owens here, joined by Adam Cullen, who returns to action Cage Warriors Manchester next Saturday night. Adam, always a pleasure, my man. How are things with you today?
Going good, Mike. Thanks for having me on again. Fucking love coming on for a talk with you.
I appreciate that, mate. I want to take it back a couple of days because for anyone who's been following your social media or the gym's social media, I should say, you had a certain UFC superstar in the gym in former world title challenger Gilbert Burns.
Yeah.
Saw the photos where you were training with him. What was that experience like?
Do you know what? It was half mad, to be fair. I didn't even really know he was coming in. I rocked up in the morning. It was super busy. Oh, man, I was thinking, what's going on here? Why is there so many people? And everyone was half talking. And I just turned around to Molly and went, what's going on? Said, Gilbert Burns is coming over. He's just got the taxi to the wrong gym on the Wirral. But he's coming over here now to train. And I was like, yeah. She's like, no, lads, Gilbert Burns is coming in here. Lad, I wasn't having it until he fucking turned up. And then mad thing is he just jumps in the session and it ended up being me drilling with him for about an hour and a half. Proper mad experience, but so good to like compare yourself to someone who's literally at the highest level of the sport to get to tear it up with them. Unbelievable experience.
I was going to say your gym is a smaller weight class gym in a lot of ways. The only big bodies I can think of off the top of my head is yourself, who at 155. It's not the top end, and Bonner obviously at middleweight and welterweight. So I imagine you spent a lot of time in the room on the mat with Gilbert.
Yeah, just the way it worked out with partners. I was the only one who didn't have someone when he turned up, and it just sort of got thrust on me like, yeah, you and Gilbert go, and lads literally drilled, in like the MMA striking at the start, and then the grappling session. It was just a mad experience, obviously, because we're like lightweight welterweights tend to really train together. But he was a big guy. He was probably about 91, 92 kg, and obviously I'm fighting next week, so I'm quite light at the minute. It was a bit of a strange experience. It was like super strong and super technical. But do you know what? He was a proper nice lad. Me being a proper MMA nerd, I was asking him all kinds of questions. And like I was saying, you know, you're the only person who's got up off the bottom with Kamzat in the UFC. How did you do it? And he just straight away goes into showing me the get up he used. And then I was saying, oh, but blah, blah, this and that about different fights. And he just showed me loads of techniques. He was super cool. And like, it's mad to have someone that level giving you advice and giving you techniques, you know what I mean? If someone can show you a technique that gets you up off the bottom with Kamzat's on top of you, then you know it's fucking legit.
Yeah, 100%. I actually interviewed him on Sunday night when he got here after the Everton match, and it was quite bizarre being in town and seeing Gilbert Burns rocking about. But yeah, is there a particular person you'd like to train with most on kind of the world stage? Is there someone you look at and go, whether it be because I think I could develop my skills best with them, or whether it just be a fanboy moment? Is there someone you've got in mind?
There's two, to be fair. Volkanovski, just because he's the best, isn't he? Like, why wouldn't you want to train the best? But a bit of a mad one, Brendan Loughnane. I just love his mindset. Like, I was literally listening to a podcast with him this morning. I love his mentality for fighting. Everything he does in his life is for fighting. So, yeah, if I get to train, like, do a camp with Brendan Loughnane one day, that'd be sick, because I just love to pick his brains, because he's done it all, hasn't he? Fought in all the organisations, won world titles, lost fucking big fights. He's been around the block, and he's the man.
He's had the knockbacks as well. That's the thing about Brendan, is Brendan's got that grit in him. He's had those tough moments, like the Duke and War loss, getting knocked back on Contender Series. So Brendan's the man in terms of, taking those licks and keep coming type of thing.
But he's a real fighter. I mean, one of my coaches, Jack Kennedy, said to me, you're not a real fighter unless you're being beaten. If you've not been beaten and you've not been in a tough fight, you're a bully, you're not a fighter. And I think that's a great way of putting it. And Brendan Loughnane is like the definition of that. He's fought the toughest test all times. Even when it hasn't been on a big show, he's still fighting hard fights.
Yeah.
And like you said, setbacks, knockbacks, no door shut in his face that he hasn't stopped. And looking at him, he is a person that you should be looking up to in the sport.
Can you just repeat that quote, what your coach said to you?
He said, if you what's the quote? You're only a fighter if you've had losses and come back from them. If you've never had a loss and you've never had a tough fight, you're not a fighter, you're a bully.
without being disrespectful, how apt or how much is that on your mind going into this next fight after the way the last fight went?
Yeah, no, it's definitely now it's time to prove myself. I know I'm a real fighter because stuff like this doesn't shake me. Like, I know how good I am. I know what I've got, and I've said in past interviews, I know I'm gonna lose because it's MMA. If you think you're not gonna lose, you're deluded, or you're not testing yourself. I know what I'm about, and I'm gonna show it because I know where I'm going. Do you know what I mean? Look at the top guys in the UFC; they're all in the 30s. They've all had losses. That's the way you cut your teeth, and that's the way you become a world-class fighter. Yeah. So I just look at that and go, thank you. That was a great experience. I learned so much from that. I made so many mistakes going into that fight, and they all lined up perfectly. Where potentially I could have got, if I only made one of them mistakes, I could have got away with it, and you never learn from it. But I made a good 5 or 6 mistakes going into that fight, and it all lined up perfectly. I got beat the way I did. It was a horrendous knockout. Everyone's seen it. And now it's like perfect because now I have to learn from that. Now I have to level up to even prove to myself that I am who I say I am.
Yeah, 100%. Can you kind of give me an idea of what those mistakes, what you feel they were? Can you be slightly more specific on what you feel like you did wrong, or either going into that fight or actually in the cage?
Yeah, so going into the fight, cutting too much weight. I say it all the time, I'm a proper MMA nerd. I watch everything. And I was watching all the process of cutting weight for guys like Islam and Charles Oliveira and Chandler and all them, and they all cut horrendous amounts of weight. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, I'm bigger than them, so surely I should be cutting massive amounts of weight because that's what you need for the advantage. But at the end of the day, I don't have millions of pounds worth of nutritionists working with me, and I don't have camps built around me like them guys. So I learned to stay in your own lane, mostly. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. You just do you. Secondly, being composed. I was I wasn't composed going in. I think a big thing was the first round finishes hanging over my head. Everyone knew me. Yeah. Oh, that kid put 6 first round finishes in 6 fights. Blah, blah, he stops fights. But that was hanging over my head. So I lost composure. And you watch me in the gym, I'm not like that. I'm super composed. I think out all my fights. I plan out every move I'm going to do. I'm a big thinker when it comes to MMA. I even talk to my corner between rounds. It's because I was so uncomposed in that fight. Went out, flew out, made stupid mistakes that I'd never make. And then between rounds, and my head's gone and all that, and the weight cut all added up. And that's just not me. But again, not like feeding into what everyone else expects of me. Be composed, be a good athlete, be a good fighter. And then underestimating opponents as well. I had that many opponent changes coming into the fight. It come to fighting Galen. And I was a bit like, I need a name on the shit. So as long as there's a name in there, I'll fight him. And I probably didn't give him the respect he deserved, especially for the first minute. First minute, I thought I'm going to go out and smoke this kid. And then me, with all that, all the factors going in, lining up, I was absolutely shite for the first 2 minutes. By the time I regained composure, I was like, what am I doing? Like, you're in a fight here, let's go. That's when the mistake of cutting too much weight then caught up with me. And then I was gassed and I couldn't get my hands together and I just fell apart. But all that, there's so many lessons. And then so many lessons going in. I didn't really have a proper boxing coach. I've now got a boxing coach. Loads of stuff. But like you say, when you're winning, you don't want to change anything. And I've been so guilty of that in the past. Everything's going right. You literally don't even want to change what you're eating. Don't want to change how you're sleeping. Don't want to change anything because you think doing what I'm doing equals wins. Yeah. It's not until you do everything right, and then you lose where you take a step back and go, oh, am I doing everything right, or am I just kidding myself because I'm getting away with it?
It's really interesting you mentioned the first round finish streak as well. I wanted to kind of touch on that because I wondered, and I don't, once again, I'm being careful with how I access it because I don't want to come across as disrespectful, but do you think maybe there was an ego attached to that? Do you think there was a little bit of you got in your own head a little bit too much?
There always is. Like, fighting's so egotistical. Like, at the end of the day, we get into our undies and we have a straightener in a cage for money. Yeah. Like, there's ego attached. But again, you can just get drawn into things. Like, I don't need to be a first round finisher. I am a finisher anyway. Yeah. That's the way I train as a finisher. Like, all my sparring, I'm going for finishes. But doing it within 5 minutes or doing it within 15 minutes, it doesn't make a difference. But that all hanging over my head, I feel like made me do stupid things. I seen a good quote the other day. I can't remember who it was, but it was they were talking about, it was a UFC fight. I honestly can't remember who it was, but they were saying about, like, doing it for the crowd or doing it for the victory. And I've definitely been guilty of doing it for the crowd in the past. And now, as a new fighter, as I've learned after that last loss, like, I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for the victory.
Yeah. So taking away kind of the mental obstacles that you maybe put in your own way, or that you're going to have to overcome in this next fight. From a style perspective, you always had that very aggressive, very come forward kind of marauding style, both on the feet and on the ground. Are there any technical changes that you're looking to change in your own style going forward from this moment?
Not really. I'm aggressive. I will always be an aggressive fighter because I'm confident in my power. I'm confident in my skills, and I'm confident in my conditioning. So I know I can keep up that pace for 15 minutes. The issue is when you're trying to be an aggressive, come forward, overwhelming fighter, but you've just cut 25 pounds of water overnight.
Yeah.
Like that when that's on, they don't complement each other, do they? Cutting massive amounts of weight and being relentless in the cage don't complement each other. But again, I was thinking I have to cut massive amounts of weight to be physically imposing in the cage. But I'm physically imposing lightweight anyway, whether I cut 25 pounds in the week or not. I'm a big lightweight. I'm aggressive. And my conditioning's unbelievable. If that's not physically imposing enough, don't know what is. Again, I've been in that cage so many times at lightweight now. I'm yet to feel someone as strong as me at lightweight. So whether I'm cutting 25 pounds or not doesn't mean I'm going to be any stronger. But it's all learning, do you know what I mean? Like I said about Brendan before, you learn from super hard fights over a long amount of time. At the end of the day, I've been a professional for about 2 years. I'm 25. Like, I'm so young in the sport. The only difference is I got a bit of hype behind me and people started going UFC, this and that. But really, if no one was talking, you'd just be like, just another guy who's on the come up. So I'm still learning. And you take from people like Brendan and you listen to stuff they say, and they learn to become composed. They learn to become the fighter they are today, like completely in the skills and in the mindset, purely through experience.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. I couldn't agree more. And you've also got role models in the gym. The likes of, Nathan took a big loss against Wooden. That was for a title. Paddy and Molly, I know they've got a lot of support now, but there was days, Paddy and Molly have been open about times where they've struggled after losses. So you've also got role models in the gym, and I'm sure you've had good pieces of advice from both your teammates and your coaches about how to handle this moment and to come back better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I had this loss, all the team got around me, and it was really good to feel the support and hear other people's experiences with the loss. And you're not the only one who's been through it. Like the talks I had with Molly and Paddy when they were ringing me after the fight, they were really good, because you think you're alone. Do you know what I mean? You think, oh, I fucked it. Like, I'm never going to come back from this. What have I done? I was nearly in the UFC and I was undefeated and blah blah. And then when you hear from them, everyone always says the same thing. Like, it'll be the best thing that ever happened to you. And I've not even got in the cage again yet, and I know it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like, mentally, I am in a completely different place now. And going into these fights, I just know I'm going to be different, because I feel how my mind's changed. I feel how my training's changed. Technically, I'm so much sharper than I was. And even just little things of, like, the pressure's gone now of being this undefeated first round finisher. Now I can just do me and just win how I like to win.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And kind of turning the conversation towards the division as a whole. I mean, there was a lot of talk that potentially if you had won that fight in April, it might have been a vacant title shot. I know George Hardware was obviously on the Contender Series. Just your overall opinion to where divisions currently are.
It's a bit of a weird place, isn't it? Obviously, I think everyone just assumed George was going to be gone. Obviously, that didn't happen. He had a horrendously tough fight in the Contender Series. But it's sort of stagnated, hasn't it? There's no real, like, contenders emerged. Like, since I lost, no one's really had a standout win, have they? That you'd go, blah, blah is next in line. So it's a bit of a strange one. And obviously George coming back now, like, no one really seen that coming either. So who's going to be the next to fight George? It's a bit of a weird place, but it's a blessing for me, because, again, all that experience I've gained, if I wouldn't have gained that, I wouldn't have been ready for the UFC. I wouldn't have been ready. Maybe I'd have won the title, but I wouldn't have been ready for the UFC.
Yeah.
And is it worse to have a loss now when you're not in the UFC and learn when the pressure's not as great, or make your UFC debut in front of millions of people, find out all the holes you've got in your game, and then the UFC don't offer you a fight for another year? I've seen it many times. So for me, it's been an absolute blessing. And I know, like, yeah, okay, it's delayed my career of where I thought it was going, but in the long run, it's going to do so many better things than being undefeated for longer would have done for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. You mentioned George as well. I know George is currently back in Cage Warriors, as you mentioned, after the Contenders Series loss. I'm sure you've seen that. I know you actually went up and trained in Middlesbrough with George and Harry, but I'm sure you've seen the rumours of George Harder potentially fighting Paul Hughes for the lightweight title. What do you make of that fight if it materialises?
Doesn't make any sense, really. Like, I like Paul Hughes, he's a great fighter, but the guy has like one fight a year. Like, that featherweight division is the most stacked division in Cage Warriors, and anyone can say whatever they want, but that's a fact. There's so many guys for him to fight in there. He doesn't need to move up. It's just like a weird move, I think. Doesn't really make sense. Like, say if it was the other way around, that it was George and there's no one for him to fight, and he was going to move up to welterweight, for example, that would make more sense.
Yeah.
But Paul Hughes hasn't even defended the title. He fought Vucenic a year ago was right now, wasn't it?
Close
a year ago.
Yeah.
And he had a year off before that. I don't know what he's doing. I think he's just looking for the fastest route to the UFC, and I can't blame him. But I think the fastest route was defending the title, to be honest. And like, when this guy's like Harry knocking on the door, it was a tough test. And he's a big name in his own right. There's big fights there. It's not like there's no big fights for him. There's plenty of big fights, even in Havila this weekend. If Havila beats Hendon and they make Havila versus Paul Hughes, huge fight. Luke Riley versus Paul Hughes, huge fight. But he doesn't seem to want it, and I don't really know why. And aiming for George, I think it's a bit of a strange move, because he's never really mentioned it before, has he? And now all of a sudden he's banging the door down for a lightweight fight.
Do you think he expected the UFC call up after the Vucenic win, and maybe it hasn't come, or maybe he's been offered a Contender Series fight, and now he's kind of feeling like he has to one up the Vucenic loss by trying to become champ the way another Irishman once did?
I think he definitely expected the call up after the Vucenic fight. I expected him to get called up.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, Vucenic was riding high himself, wasn't he? And it was a dominant performance. But you need activity, don't you? And you need finishes. And they're two things Paul Hughes has always struggled with. And it's a shame, because he's so technically good. But he needs to be more active. I mean, I don't know why he hasn't been signed. I do think he should have been signed, but I don't think sitting out is the right thing to do when you haven't been signed. I think you've got to get active, and one guy who does that is George, and he's shown that, hasn't he, that being active gets you places. Yeah.
Well, turning the conversation back to yourself for kind of my final question, Adam, obviously, as you mentioned there, the win is of prime importance next Saturday, and I'm sure to an extent you'll take that, and the lessons that we've talked about, you will take that any way it comes. But kind of past another W on your record, what is the kind of goal you're looking for in this fight? What is the thing that is it trying to prove the doubters wrong? Is it a you almost have forgot moment, or is it just getting back on the horse with another win?
I'm just proving it to myself. Do you know what I mean? I know how good I am. Like, it's just about the result, really, at the end of the day. Like, this sport means everything to me. Like, I am completely obsessed with mixed martial arts. And again, I'll steal a quote from Brendan Loughnane. Like, my whole life is a relentless pursuit of excellence. And that is absolutely what I'm aiming for. I want this to be another step in my journey to excellence, where I know I'm going to make it to the UFC. I know I'm going to be a world champion. And this is just another step on that journey. And who knows how it goes. I know what I'm going in there to do. I'm going in there to do someone some damage. And I'm going in there to get a finish. And that's all I can say. I've prepared mentally and physically as well as I possibly can. I've learnt them lessons from that loss, and I'm back, and I'm better than I ever have been. So I'm just ready for the 29th to completely school someone.
Yeah, I love it, mate. Well, look, it's great to see you back in action. See you booked again to fight and kind of right that wrong that we talked about in April. So enjoy the rest of fight camp, enjoy fight week, and I wish you the best of luck for next Saturday night.
Nice one, Mike. Cheers.